Every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for cannabis.
We're here to talk to the police about PTSD and the Kuma guidelines, and if we can smoke marijuana here in their smoking area. Wish us luck. I'm a medical marijuana patient here in New Jersey. There's no breathe easy zone here, so can we use our medical marijuana here?
You can certainly smoke your prescribed medical marijuana anywhere that it is absolutely legal to smoke.
And there he goes, firing up right in front of the cop department. Oh, I love this, man. Peace, love, and happiness.
It's a taste of freedom, baby. That was the easiest INE tour we ever did.
Unbelievable.
That was cake.
She came right out and said, I know all about it. That's the kind of people we like.
Love cops like that. I love cops like that. That's what we want.
Well, I forgot her name. You got her name?
Cristiano. And I bet she can kick your ass.
I bet you.
I bet she'd f you up.
I know. She was big. She was a tall girl.
She'd probably go right for your
in
balls,
shape,
right for your throat.
In
eyes.
shape. Yeah. You know what? I'd screw around with some big guys, but I don't know if I'd screw around with her. For her to be where she is, she's got to be tough. Tougher than a guy.
Yeah, yes. Prove herself.
She's got to prove herself. The guys ain't easy on her.
No. So she probably has all kinds of like.
Yeah,
skills,
she's a tough.
Bazookas, whatever. She can do it all.
She's tough. She's for sure tough. You can see it in her too. Stoic.
I like that.
Yeah. All business. Good. Fine. That's what it should be.
Stop arresting patients! Stop arresting patients! Stop arresting patients!
Welcome to CMMNJ TV.
Every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for marijuana.
I'm Ken Walski, Executive Director of the Coalition for Medical Marijuana New Jersey. The mission of our organization is to educate the public about the benefits of marijuana. Marijuana is a safe, effective, and inexpensive therapeutic agent for a wide variety of diseases, symptoms, and conditions. No patient should suffer needlessly without it, and no patient should ever go to jail for following the advice of a doctor. Join us and learn more about the exciting science of medical marijuana. Welcome to CMMNJ TV. I'm Ken Walski, Executive Director of the Coalition for Medical Marijuana New Jersey. I'm here in the Princeton Community TV studios today with the co-founder of the Coalition for Medical Marijuana New Jersey, Jim Miller. Jim, thank you for coming, and with Marc Levine. Thank you so much for coming. Marc, you're from Metuchen. You've been a supporter of medical marijuana for at least 10 years that I remember, and been very generous with the Coalition for Medical Marijuana, and so I want to thank you for coming, for your generosity in the past, and for coming here today to Princeton.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
So, and you're familiar with the California law. Apparently, you go back and forth to California.
I do. I'm not an expert, but I am fairly well versed only from my involvement. California law, described by Governor Christie as the Wild West, is anything but. It's well thought out, it's well implemented, and they have more than their share of opposition in California as well.
Mm-hmm. Where does that come from in California? I mean, the opposition. Just.
Well, I'll tell you, when Proposition 19 was defeated in California, the legalization proposition a few years ago, the main opponents were the correction officers, law enforcement, elements of law enforcement, and the illegal drug producers in California, the illegal market in California.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
That was a threat to their profits. So it's kind of an unholy coalition there.
I know. This is going to be informing me well too. I know very little about the reality. I hear what our governor says, and California's always had that reputation of being a good starting point if you were cannabis friendly. But I'm a little surprised to hear that there's opposition to.
It's rampant. I won't say statewide. I think different areas where the conservative majority live.
Are they able to roll back anything locally? Do you see any of that going on?
Well, it happens every day.
I mean, in smaller communities that can have their own laws that.
Countywide.
Yeah, countywide.
The Proposition 215, which legalized medicinal marijuana in California, left the issue very vague as to community standards. The law is irrefutable that the rights of a patient cannot be contravened. However, they do so by utilizing ordinance law. They'll go after patients and growers for supposed pollution, for pollution of creeks and streams and using improper fertilizers. They'll go after the most recent ordinance in Butte County, California, where I own a piece of property, is that in order to grow marijuana, you have to have a permitted house and a permitted well and a permitted house, well, and septic. None of which applies to any other agricultural commodity in the state of California, only for marijuana. And it attempts to alienate patients' rights by making limitations on the properties on which they grow their marijuana. Property doesn't have patients' rights, only people have patients' rights. As a property owner, I'm at liberty, at least in my opinion, I'm at liberty to contract with anybody to lease or sublease or to cultivate on this piece of property. I mean, we do ourselves as patients, but what we're saying to the county is you can't limit the amount of marijuana we grow as long as we're compliant with proper patient credentials. When we first got involved, the first thing they came and they demanded to see our patient credentials. And we absolutely refused to divulge the patient credentials. We referred them instead to our attorney. And we felt that compromising the patient credentials would only lead to further prosecutions on an individual basis. Knowing who the patients are, they would come and search their homes and seize their property, all of which is a reality. The issue at hand really is political, economic, moral, ethical. I mean, there is a definite opposition to marijuana, and why does that opposition exist? I don't think anybody with half a brain can refute the science that says it's good medicine. Good medicine for almost all ailments, not just the specific ailments set forth here in New Jersey, but still people object. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but as we said a few moments ago, one of the chief objectors to legalization was the black market. They maintain a very high price per pound for their commodity, and they export it all over the country, if not all over the world. California marijuana has a wonderful reputation for its efficacy and its THC content.
Sure, the Emerald Triangle up there in those, is it Shasta, Trinity, and Humboldt counties?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
What's the price? What price would a patient pay where at a dispensary, or their California's version of a dispensary?
Approximately the prices you're familiar with here, $30 to $40 per eighth, which brings it up $270, $283, $320, depending upon quality per ounce.
Yeah. See, we're really jealous of that price here. While that may sound like a lot to you in California, I believe it's more like $560 plus tax and fees
through the
legitimate medicinal system.
Right,
yeah. However, the black market here in New Jersey is a solid $270, $280.
Yeah, and it's been doing better since the medical law was passed, I think, because most patients. Really, let's look at the reality. If you could afford 1 month worth of black market marijuana per month, or you could only get 2 weeks worth at the same price at a dispensary, you jeopardize your health by not breaking the law to some degree.
It would go a long way to justify their position in pricing if they would allow insurance companies to cover it. then it would be just more pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Nobody really cares what it costs because nobody ever sees the cost.
Right.
It builds the insurance company, perpetuates the system we're all involved in.
Oh, there'd be some opposition from the insurance industry.
But,
Well, there is.
Of course there would be.
But just one point about the patient credentials. My understanding is in California, it's not like New Jersey where every patient has to have an ID card. You can go on an oral recommendation from a physician, and so it doesn't even have to be a written, or is
Well, there are actual state-issued ID cards, but I don't know of anyone actually has a state-issued ID card. What people have instead are doctor's credentials and actual prescriptions with a raised seal. And I personally, when I'm in California, carry it on my person at all times.
Oh, yeah.
And the authorities, even though they try frequently, a most recent incident that someone I know was involved, the officer arrested him and confiscated his marijuana and charged him with possession. He presented the officer with his credentials. The officer, I don't care anything about that. It's precisely the way it was phrased.
How about that?
And I don't care anything about that. So they went through the process of arresting him, detaining him, as I've learned. It's amazing what you learn, that arrest is not the same as being detained. When you're pulled over by a police officer, you've been arrested. Your physical progress in your journey has been arrested. You're not actually under arrest, as we come to understand it, until you're told you're being detained. When you're being detained, then you're under arrest. Just a minor point. But they arrested him, and they booked him, and they went through the progress of a trial. Long story short, he had an attorney who was willing to stand up for his rights, and he said, "This is ridiculous, Your Honor. He has a valid prescription. Why did the officer ignore the prescription?" And the case was ultimately dismissed. But not until he had spent some thousands of dollars on an attorney and time and effort.
That's why it helps to carry around a card with you, so you
Well,
can present it
as I said, I carry my prescription with me.
And California really is. I mean, there's some very conservative areas of California.
Oh, yes,
I mean,
indeed.
you may think about San Francisco and the Bay Area, and maybe Los Angeles being bastions of liberal thinking.
Yeah, try Bakersfield, see how you do.
Right, the Inland Empire. That
3 hours north in the heart of the agricultural Sacramento Valley, it's conservative, conservative. I mean, how can you have a properly administered medicinal program when it's left to the politicians instead of the medical profession?
And there are things that the medicinal program would need to do that they wouldn't need to do for adult social use. Quantitatively assess stuff to the care that they need to do with people who are using it as medicine, and counterindications from other things that the medical program could be in effect still, but nobody would be breaking the law whether they were a patient or simply using it as an adult. And like it says, because no one should suffer needlessly. Nobody, not just registered patients, nobody.
I hope in the final analysis the science of cannabis will set us all free. I don't see how long they can deny it, at least deny it, without coming out and saying we have a moral objection and that's what it's all about. We hate it and we'll never allow it to happen.
I agree with you. I'd love to see that science come out, but then I want to run into them in a back alley and explain it to them one day. Here's the science. Let's see if it physically does fit sideways. I'm not the good turn your cheek other guy. I see this as a violation of human rights, to where we need some form of Nuremberg trial afterwards. Not that it rises to that level. I'm just making the comparison.
Indeed, it does rise to that level.
I don't think people should be allowed to walk away. Not the ones who were misled, not the ones who didn't think, the ones that we're talking about where it's a concerted effort to keep it from happening.
Well, yeah.
And what are the motives that keep it from happening? Are they political? Are they moral? Are they ethical? Are they economical? All of these factors exist. In California, for instance, you'd think with 15 years of medicinal legislation firmly implanted that it would be smooth sailing to obtain medicine, but it's not. It's not. It depends on where you go and what area you're in. And the federal government did its part to police California medicinal dispensaries. They shut down literally hundreds. And I might add that many of them probably deserve to be shut down under a medicinal guideline because they had no compliance with the state laws whatsoever. No patient
the state
records.
should have been the one who shut them down, though, not the feds.
Not the feds. Well, it was the feds, and the state went along, and now they're starting to reopen under much tighter scrutiny, which is really fine with me on a medicinal basis, although I am a believer in medicinal, spiritual, and recreational. It can't possibly be any worse than a broad use of alcohol.
Not that it's overly important to know, but the reason I picketed Congressman Frank Plum's house was over his voting on the Hinchy-Rohrabacher Amendment, which would have defunded the DEA to get out of California and other states' affairs, and he would vote the wrong way on that, so I did that because of that. And then next year when I had somebody get in touch with him, Gary Sage, and say that Jim doesn't want to come back and picket, well, he's talking to a staffer, doesn't want to come back and picket his house. And Jim sent me here to tell you, he physically went to the office, because, well, he lived by, he said, to tell you that an abstention would clear the slate, and you wouldn't see him at your house anymore. And I felt it was like strong arming him. No, he changed his vote, and I'm not saying that caused him to do it.
No, but I'm certain
I'm just saying it was
showing a little light on the subject.
Yeah, when it comes to your front door, it's a different war.
It is a different war.
So the Wild West of marijuana in California is really a great exaggeration.
It's a great exaggeration.
When you consider the strenuous kind of...
well, the fact that it's readily available on a doctor's recommendation, the fact that it's been somewhat decriminalized and an ounce or less is now a civil fine of $100. But I don't see there is no disruptive element to it that I can see. There aren't people wild in the streets, and people get up every morning and go to work, and they complain about their aches and pains, and that helps a bit. And
did anybody in California then, if we heard Governor Christie spent a lot of time saying we don't want to be like California and Colorado, we don't want to be like Colorado and he said that for years, decimated our bill, blaming Colorado. And you know what we never heard? Let me finish. We never heard anybody from Colorado sticking up for us in New Jersey. Why was that?
Well, let me say this, that we
needed help. We didn't get it. Not from California. Nobody said, we hear what you're saying, but nobody said this to and I begged friends out there to do that. People in Colorado wrong. It's just that
California is in flux as much as any other state in the union. They desperately want to legalize marijuana, but they can't find the right vehicle. Legalize like alcohol, okay, if you legalize it like alcohol and your primary goal is to tax it for full revenue stream, how do you protect the patient's rights to grow their own?
Oh, nobody's going to agree.
Nobody.
You're never going to come to a consensus.
It's the number one issue at the moment. They can't tax what they don't know is being grown, what's traded and bartered. But they have their problems. California wants to legalize it, and the number one issue, at least I feel it's the number one issue, is a patient or a person's right to grow their own marijuana. They desperately do not want patients and people to have the right to grow their own marijuana. In the forum and discussions regarding medicinal marijuana, do we ever hear the opposition actually putting forth reasons? I mean, we know they don't like marijuana. They don't want to see marijuana.
They don't have discussions. They put forth reasons, but never in discussion, and they will raise two questions and answering one. What we should be really, I think, more focused on at times, and I know we are, is trying to get people to the table. I mean, we would invite anybody here that has an opposite point of view. Just having a video camera on when somebody has a voice of dissent and say, would you mind if I video this? Because to hear the logic is frightening at times, and actually when somebody tries to do that, sometimes you can even see the lights going on in their head saying, oh, that didn't sound right, when it's leaving their mouth. And it's the discussion, it's the hit and run tactics that Cheryl and I always, we dub them hit and run tactics.
Well, what is their motive? I mean, could any rational human being possibly deny a suffering person relief from that suffering? Is that their motive? Certainly not, I think.
Well, rational sociopath, sure.
Well, so afraid somewhere is going to have a good time. It's euphorophobia.
Well, and they're not having a good time. If I'm not having a good time, you're not.
Is it the
moral opposition,
or is it the conceived civil disobedience that goes with marijuana?
Oh, it's multiple factors, no doubt. I mean, I don't think anybody's got really one solid reason that holds up to anything. I think it's got to be multiple. And a lot of times people perceive it as almost like their religion, their faith.
Well, there's also
might not
decades
back
of
it up.
misinformation by the
Decades
federal
of
government.
absolutely.
Decades of exaggeration of the dangers.
Decades of misinformation by private industry as well.
And look at the bias towards science that exists now. You know, the science that the federal government funds is looking for harms associated with marijuana, not benefits.
The world is
associated with
flat,
marijuana.
and the sun does revolve around the earth after all.
I mean, the endocannabinoid system was discovered several decades ago, and yet it's only taught it's even mentioned in 14% of the medical schools in the country. It's not mentioned in hardly any of the nursing schools. You're hard pressed to find it in any of the medical textbooks. So, you know, it's this denial of this emerging science. And we have federal police, the Drug Enforcement Agency, which is
a gigantic industry that relies on the prohibition for their livelihood.
Exactly, and it determines what medical and scientific studies can be done in this country, which is just a horrible
that's
situation,
big
and
fight of
something
mine
that
for you.
we really must resolve as a nation never to permit again, to permit federal police to decide what medical and scientific
Quite honestly,
studies can be done.
I take full responsibility for that, because between the 70s and the millennium, I was busy making a living and raising children. I wasn't paying attention. When I woke up, I don't want to voice it too strongly, but I think the fascists are in control.
Yeah, well, this one I really believe we've reached a tipping point, and it's just so slow. It seems
slow.
sometimes, but we haven't really been taking steps backwards. Anything that comes up like it's linked to schizophrenia is so easily counteracted immediately by somebody with a much better point. It's gonna happen.
It is
It's
going to happen.
But we need to
How
keep pushing.
many newspaper articles have you seen? How many people have used this pseudoscience that says marijuana decreases IQ? You know, there's no proof of that.
No
There's,
proof.
you know, it's a very flawed study. How many studies have? How many people have referred to the study that says marijuana produces changes in the brain? Well, first of all, it hasn't been proved that marijuana changes the brain. And even if it did change the brain, there is like 3 things that could happen. It could be a good change, it could be a neutral change, or it could be a bad change.
And, you
so
know,
why are we assuming it's a bad change?
Another argument to that, against that, would be to ask that person, whose brain, yours? Well, then leave me alone. It's my brain. I'll do what I want with my brain. Now go home.
That's all bad science.
It's, you know, it's a basic right. Like I said, nobody tells me what furniture to put in my house if I ever get a house, and nobody tells me what food I put in my body. It's not much. I know a lot of people wouldn't trade me for it, but it's mine. It's all mine, and I get to do that.
If you penned an article espousing any anti-issues with marijuana, there would be a rush to publication.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, less now because the pendulum is slowly swinging and people are relying on better science and facts. But I would say 20 years ago, you could write that marijuana causes mass murder and it would appear in print somewhere.
You know, my best argument for medical marijuana, when I was with Cheryl in an opposing congressman's office, and we're talking to his health person. It got to a point where I was getting a little heated, and I said to him, let me ask you something. How long do you think she has to live? He said, I don't know. I said, that's right. You don't know, do you? And then we ended the conversation right there. There was nothing he could say.
As stunning as that moment was, I bet you he didn't respond appropriately at all.
No, there was no. It's a lot of times, and again, it's what the coalition tries to do, is give a voice to the people who can't get out and have that voice. And, you know, hopefully we can even get better at making sure they're not forgotten. Diane Ripatella in particular. You know, she never got to see this work. It was probably a disappointment when she died to her. And the jokes that were even being made as she championed it, I think there's not as many jokes being made anymore.
No.
And I just think that we need to have more discussion on it. I posted recently on Facebook, I looked at a little ad I took out in the now defunct Ocean County Observer that said, reward for anybody that could lead to a facilitated medical marijuana discussion with Assemblyman James Holsapple. $245.57 reward paid for a Bushel Social Security check. And I put that reward for anybody that could do that. It wasn't that I thought I'd find anybody to do it, that was my way of saying they won't even have the discussion. Right. The trick is you do it with sound bites or through the mail, and once you've done it 2 or 3 times back and forth, they say that that's all the time they have. They have so many constituents, anything else that comes before you'll keep your views in mind.
You have to utilize the same mechanisms which has fueled their prohibition all these years.
Well, except for the internet and social media, which we have now, which very strong presence and influence on drug policy reform. I mean, I guess the democratization of information, scientific information, and studies.
How many people know Michelle Lanhart?
The young people are just waiting for us old folks to kick off. I sat with my son and a few friends last night on the deck, and we're talking about politics and life, and I pointed out to them, because they're very impatient. I said, I remember being that impatient. I'm very anxious and impatient for change now, but I think the truth of the matter is that there are some elder statesmen who are almost through, and then that leaves it to people my age or slightly older, and we're almost through. So you're going to have it soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming here, Marc.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for being here with me today at Princeton Community TV for another episode of CMMNJ TV. For more information about the Coalition for Medical Marijuana New Jersey, join us at our free public meetings on the second Tuesday of every month at the Lawrence Township Library in Mercer County, New Jersey, from 7 to 9 p.m. Snacks are served and all are welcome. Remember, every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone's arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, somebody's arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone's arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, somebody is arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone's arrested for cannabis.
Every 42 seconds, someone's arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for marijuana, Lefty. And you're not one of them.
Cada 42 segundos está uno arrestado por marihuana.
Every 42 seconds, somebody is arrested for...
Every 42 seconds, someone in this country is arrested for marijuana.
Chaque 10 secondes, il y a arrêté un monde pour marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for marijuana.
Every 42 seconds, someone is arrested for marijuana. It could be you.